So this is what, about 71, 72, Neal?
It was 72.
72. So it's funny because at that point, nobody was sort of documenting things with videotapes, right? It would have been incredible if you had a copy of that, but I guess that doesn't probably exist anywhere, right?
There's a really funky recording of it that you can't, it's so on and off, you can't even hear what's going on that somebody found. And it's so bad that I can't even tell if it's me playing, if it's real, but not even one picture, man. It was before cell phones,
Yeah.
And I was like, I wish I had just one picture.
It's strange because we document every moment of our lives now, and back then it would have been incredible to have that. But fast forward to like 73 or so, you meet obviously your manager, Herbie Herbert, and talk to me about how Journey actually came together.
Well, around in 72, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do after, Santana had disbanded as the band as it was. It disbanded. And I was playing with Greg Rico from Sly and Family Stone and Larry Graham, the bass player. And we had put together like a power trio that we were doing that was really funky and heavy, and I had really high hopes for it. We're starting to compile some material, and then Larry got cold feet at the last minute and wanted to do more of a straightforward R&B funk thing that became, Graham Central Station. And so I played along with it and was hanging in Oakland for a while with Larry and Freddie Stone and learning how to play funk, which I had never really dug into before, and learning a lot really quickly, hanging out in some cool clubs over there with those guys. And then, we did the really short stint at the Creative Festival, which I just saw a clip of the other day, just reminded me of it because I completely forgotten about it. But it was Buddy Miles, Greg Rico, Carlos, myself, Buddy's bass player, Ron, and a few other, I think Greg was there, Raleigh, and a few other people, where we did this live album, Carlos and Buddy Miles live in the crater in Hawaii. And so trying to figure out what I wanted to do, I'm watching this video the other day, and there was Herbie Herbert, and there was John Villanueva and Jackie Villanueva, the guys that found me,
Yeah.
And I kind of remembering it all. And Herbie had approached me shortly after that. He didn't know he wanted to become a manager, and this was in 72. It's in the middle of 72. And he says, look, kid, he goes, I was a kid back then. He goes, I want to manage you and I want to wrap a band around your guitar playing. So I just went, I don't know what I want to do. So great, let's go. And at the time he had a company that he formed called Spread Eagle Productions with Lou Bramey, his partner. And that was the beginning of Journey right then, even though we didn't know it was going to be named Journey. It started right there. And then he started introducing me to different people he felt that would be good for that band, and to wrap around myself shortly after that.
And you do 3 records, Greg Raleigh and the guys, and it's more of, as we spoke about, more of a jam band, more of a fusion type of thing. And ultimately the label after 3 records almost dropped you guys because they were like, listen, you need to get a singer that's a bit more commercial here, right?
Right. They were very frustrated with the fact that, we weren't making radio hits, even though we were, attaining a huge underground audience. I mean, it was like we played, man, with everyone from Cheech and Chong to Leonard Skinner, and I kid you not. We opened up for Thin Lizzy. We opened up for everyone. We opened up for Kiss. We opened up for everyone that known under the sun. And the audiences were always so. We opened up for Mahavishnu Orchestra, did well with that audience, for obvious reasons. But until we met Leonard Skinner, and they took us under their wing, and we started playing in front of big crowds pre Steve Perry, and we started getting 3 encores in front of them because it was a guitar, drum-based jam audience. uh, things started really opening up. And so when you go back in the interviews where Greg and I were not so sure about making this new decision of adding a new lead singer, is because we knew that we were just on the brink of, doing something big,
Yeah.
what we started. And so uh, then unfortunately, the catastrophe with Skinner and the plane, went down, and that was over. And it was such a loss to everyone, man, everybody that loved them. And um, at that point, we just took Herbie's advice, which ended up being really great advice. And the story goes, which is really funny, is I had met Steve Perry years before that, and I didn't know, what he sounded like, but he had approached me a couple times before when we were in the beginning, when we were playing as the four of us in Journey in the little clubs down in LA. And he said, "Hey, man, I'm a singer, and, are you interested in a lead vocalist?" And I go, "Well, we already have a lead vocalist. It's Greg. And so, and then I played with this band, it was like a spinoff of Santana, Azteca, for a second. I played one live show with them, which was, I thought, hideous, but everybody else loved it. And it was at the Kabuki Theater in San Francisco. And I recall Jackie Villanueva, the guy that found me, that was in our road crew, the Santana road crew. He's also the one that introduced me to Elvin and got me started. Um, he goes, "Hey, there's a friend of my cousin's here. He's a singer, and he needs a ride to his car afterwards. Can you give him a ride, please?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." So I piled my equipment in my car, and I gave him a ride, and it was Steve Perry. And
Amazing.
and
Things
so
don't happen like that organically these days.
and I had no clue who he was or what he sounded like. Still, nice guy. I just, uh, it didn't click. It didn't click for me ever to go, "Hey, do you have anything I can listen to?" or anything like that. But I had met him, a couple of times before, years before. Herbie said, "This is your guy," and then CBS has sent Herbie, a demo tape of his band that he just got signed with. And apparently the bass player had just died in a car crash, and he was going to throw in the towel and forget about the music industry altogether. And, you know, Herbie pretty much said, "This is your new lead singer."
But interesting enough, when you first heard that demo of Steve, you and Greg were a little bit on the fence about if he was the right guy for you, right?
Well, and rightly so. Not that he didn't have a good voice, but the direction was so different
Yeah.
than anything we had listened to or aspired to be at that point. You know, um, you know, and it was a great demo. We just weren't sure what would become of what we started. If it would have any relevance or it even sound any way close to what we are. At this point. But it was a great move. And when Herbie brought Steve out the first time on tour for me to meet, we went up into my room and I had an acoustic guitar there. And I had, compiled this music and I put together this song that ended up being called Patiently. And, it was kind of like a type verses and then a heavier section in the end. And we started working on it. And I think within 25 minutes, half an hour, we had the song written.
Amazing.
And it went like immediate chemistry. And then Lights was after that. And so him and I immediately clicked. And then shortly after that with Greg too and everybody else.
And did you ever think that direction wise, the music seemed to be going in almost like a lighter direction at that point, right? Because you, again, coming from more of a fusion jam band kind of thing, did you sort of think about the direction with Steve and think, I wonder if this is the way to go? You just felt like it clicked right away for you?
I tried not to think too much, because you're always going to second doubt what you're doing. And I tried to go directly to the source, the brain,
Yeah.
and the heart, and just try to bypass thinking so much about what it was and what it's going to be, but what it is at the moment. And, I just shifted gears for myself because I'd never really written for a singer like Steve before in my life, you know. And I said, well, my role in this probably should to be to convey as a guitar player when I play a solo where the vocal, you know, where it ends and it goes to the guitar and it shifts gears. That should be where I should be taking off from the lead vocal
Yeah.
and playing off that. And so that's the only way I can tell you that I rationalized in my mind where I should be coming from.
Hmm.
And so I started constructing, in my mind, without constructing solos. I didn't have to work at it, but I can tell you it's a lot harder to make a musical statement in a short amount of time than a long, stretched out period of time for the type of player that I am.
Yeah, I've heard you say that Perry actually taught you how to be a songwriter for a vocalist. So yeah, talk a little bit about that because that was really, as you said, I mean, it was really all about the songs at that point.
Um, you know, Steve, obviously being the singer that he was, and he was a drummer also, and he played bass and a little bit of guitar. So every time he would strap on the bass or be singing, you had the root note sitting there. And, as you know, when you've got a lead vocal melody and a main melody of a song, that root note can change everything of
Yeah.
what that melody sounds like. And so him having a great idea about what he's hearing, it made it easy for me to wrap my head around what he was hearing. If he picked up the bass, like if I didn't quite understand where the root was of where he was singing, he was able to express that and play it, or even rhythm wise, like this is the kind of feel I'm thinking. Like in Lights, he had more of a straightforward R&B, dun, dun, dun. I like, just kind of an R&B thing. And I kind of put more of a rolling, stroll kind of thing to it.
Yeah.
And wrap my Hendrix influences around the chords, the Curtis Mayfield type stuff, and that's where that came from. But him and I had great chemistry from the get go, definitely.
No question. We'll talk about one of the greatest songs ever, "Don't Stop Believing," how that song came about. It's a great story, and some of the songs that are the most iconic songs are sort of the things that take the quickest to record and write, and sometimes they take a few hours and they go on to live in infamy forever, right? So talk to me about the story behind "Don't Stop Believing."
Don't Stop Believing. We were compiling new material for our new album that we were going to go in and record with John Kane, since he was just coming into the band. Greg Raleigh just exited. He had enough of the touring and everything, and he was just ready to start a family. And so we'd been out on tour with the Babies, and I've been watching John for some time. And I felt that he was a good foundational player and a songwriter, and played keyboards and guitar, and I kind of liked that. And so we were putting material together in my studio I had over in Oakland that I had taken over for Larry Graham. That became our clubhouse over there that we wrote everything and rehearsed. And we're coming up with new ideas. And he came in with, the verse chords, the pedaling chords. And he had the message, that his father had given him: don't give up, and don't stop believing in yourself. And so he came in with that idea and the hook, and we just started going at it. It was like pretty much, the three of us, and then later, all five of us, as the song got closer to being formatted into, a format, and with all the parts and glued together. But it started with the verse, obviously. Started trying to come up with, more of a Motown bass thing that rolled it along. And between John and I, it ended up being what it was. And then it would go, okay, where's it go from here? And then I came up with, the B section, strangers waiting, and they go, oh, I like that. Okay, so we kept that. The guitar chords kind of, you know, spoke out to what the vocal melody would be, and then we're piecing it together. And at this point, it goes back to the top, and I started playing that little guitar riff. It's kind of like a symphonic, you know, train breakdown. Everybody calls it the train
Yeah.
because that ended up inspiring the lyrics. She took the midnight train going anywhere, you know? And so I came up with that riff first. And rather than going straight back into a verse, Steve was going, no, I like that. Let's leave that. And we'll do the verse right after that again. So, we left that, got into another verse, did another B section. Then all of a sudden, it's time for a guitar solo. And I didn't really know what I was going to play. And in rehearsal, I just didn't do one. I just played the chords. And then we went, okay, what are we going to use for a chorus? So we went, used the verse chords, sang a completely different melody that Steve came up with and John over the end. And it goes to the chorus one time in the end, and that's it.
Amazing.
Completely crazy, you know, arrangement.
When you write a song like that, because I think it's at over like 1 billion streams at this point, and it's been used in everything from Glee to Rock of Ages to so many. It's such an incredible song. Do you know right away that that's a song that's gonna, live forever? Did you feel like right after writing that, all right, this is a hit? I mean, this is.
I said to the guys for real when we were in the mixing stages of the whole album, we were listening to that one back, and I turned around and I go, there's something special here with this one. I go, this song I think is going to be massively huge. And at the time, they released it as a single, and it was always a big song live for us to play. But it went, I think, to 8 in the charts. It didn't go to number 1. And it didn't become as big as it was until organically way later. And it was used like, and you say in The Sopranos and, all these different
All the
shows.
things, yeah. There's a great version of, I don't know, there's a singer named Teddy Swims. I don't know if you heard his version. He just put it up like a week ago, and it's already at like millions of views and streams.
What? He's amazing, man.
Yeah.
I reposted it when I saw it. I stuck it on my Facebook, and people were just freaking out. He's him and Chris Stapleton, I think, are like the new singers out there that are just kicking major ass.
Yeah, it's such a great version.
Soulful.
Yeah, amazing. So it's interesting. Even like Escape, I think you recorded like most of it in one take, right?
Pretty much. Yeah. And, our thing, what we did in the studio back in those days is we weren't working with computers, it was live. And so we would really rehearse a lot to not thinking, oh, we're going in to record. We knew we were going to record, but we thought in a sense of like, okay, if we're going to go play this stuff live and just walk on stage and present it to our audience, how will we play it? So I started thinking like that as a guitar player. If I'm going to play fills in between the vocals, like on Stone in Love or whatever songs, I'm going to incorporate, because I'm the only guitar player at that time, really lead guitar player, except for the songs that John played, a few rhythms on. And so I started playing stuff like that, and we rehearsed like that. Then we would go in and we would record like that. We record like we're going to play live. And it was 1 take, 2 takes at the most. 3, you started sucking, and Steve was the same. Steve was 1 take, from top to bottom, and barely ever even finished like redoing anything.
Wow.
Crazy.
To think about how a record like Escape was recorded literally in like 1 or 2 takes. It's amazing, by the way. The band had a lot of firsts. Let's talk about that for a minute, Neal. I mean, you were really the first band to tour stadiums. You also created these sort of giant screens that are today, to this day, are used at almost every concert. I think you were the first band to be featured in like a video game, and also the first band to really have sponsorship. So talk a little bit about that, because a lot of firsts for such an iconic band.
Well, you know what? the screens were definitely Herbie Herbert's idea to, he was trying to figure, we were playing these giant stadiums and he wanted to help make it more intimate for the people that were way up in the nosebleeds in the back of the stadium. And so, screens have been done before, like Elvis Presley did screens, but not to the magnitude of what he was envisioning. Like you'd have a screen, one monster, one in back of, in the center of the stage and then on the sides as well. And so we started the company Nocturne back then. The whole band, we put money into, we owned a piece of it. It went on to be massively huge company. We did screens for everyone, Michael Jackson, Madonna, everybody you can imagine, U2 that was on tour and became a huge company. Then,
Probably never thought you'd be in the giant screen business though, right?
And really, I don't know if it was that great of a business to be in, I mean, the equipment went out as fast as it came in technology wise. So you'd spend all these millions of dollars on new equipment for 1 year, and the next year you'd have all your competing companies here, and they'd have the newest and latest and greatest. So you'd have to sell off your old stuff to a new company that's going to come in, not the one that's competing with you that has endless FU money. Right. and so it was, like the bigger the company became, the more money you took in, the more money you had to spend to, bring it up to par, with technology. And so everybody wanted out. I stayed in longer than everyone else and ended up paying pretty well in the end when we ended up selling it. But yeah, that in the video game was Herbie Herbert's idea. And it's so funny to this day. I was never a video guy. I'm not a game guy like that. You sit in front of the TV,
Yeah.
But a lot of people are saying, hey, they should release this game and put it on the iPhone. Have everything else there. But yeah, we were the first to do that too. And sponsorship, yep, you're right. We got crucified for it actually in a Rolling Stone. Herbie got us sponsored by Budweiser beer and out of St. Louis. And they agreed at the point to come on and put brochures in everybody's seat of that, introduced everybody that was coming to the concert at that point. We were playing theaters still with Infinity when Steve first came in the band. We first started touring. And so there was a brochure that was left on every seat with who we are. And of course, being sponsored by Budweiser.
You still have that brochure, by the way?
I'm sure I do somewhere.
It'd be a good thing to look at for sure. So it's interesting. So, fast forward, you sell millions of records. You have this incredible career. 2017, you get nominated Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. How did it feel? Tell me a little of the backstory about that. And, I think obviously you connected with Steve again at that point.
Well, I had, I'm not one of these guys that sits around and wishes that we would receive this award, or even the only records you're going to see in my house are the one you're looking at in the back here, because the wall was kind of drab and this is where I do my interviews from. And, I never repainted this room and it was dark green. So I had to stick something up in the back of me. But
it looks good. Looks good.
I just, everything is in a case, in a box, and it's up in the attic. And so I wasn't one of those guys that wanted to look at everything that I've done and go, yep, that's me. That's what I did with the rest of the guys. Sure, I know it. I acknowledge it. And I'm really proud of, what we've accomplished. But, I prefer more to look at where I'm going. And I kind of look at it. The only way I can feel like I'm moving ahead and not sitting in neutral or moving backwards is by not resting on the laurels of what I've done.
Of course.
Respect it, but don't look at it every day and go, well, that's what I did. That's what I did. That's, with these guys. And so, it was really for it to happen, I was like kind of blown away after, being, upward and nominated, I think, for 2 decades and never getting it. Like, I think back when was the most likely time that we would get it. We
Mm.
still never ever received a Grammy until recently. And it wasn't really a musical Grammy. It was a Grammy to be in the Hall of Fame,
Right.
and that's kind of more mind boggling than, what we were talking about.
It is. It is.
Seeing all the records that we sold
Yeah.
and, the popularity of them and how it continues to sell. But, it's a political thing, man. I have to say, definitely, someone didn't like us somewhere that was high up in the board. And that's what took so long. And I think until the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame opened it up for the fans who actually vote, I don't think we would have ever gotten in if it wasn't for our fans. They're the greatest fans in the world. But to reconnect with Steve that night was really very, very cool. And my wife was with me, and she, instigated me going over there to say hello to him. And I go, I'm not going to do this tonight. We haven't spoken in a long time. She pushed, and I went, okay, I'll do it. And he agreed to see me, so I went in a room and we hung out. It was actually it was a great reconnection. It was very emotional for both of us. It ended up, we ended up taking it on the stage. And, there was obvious that there was still, a lot of love there and respect, and an emotional night for myself, especially, I felt. And I loved reconnecting with them. I felt that after all was said and done in the past, that, we pushed all that stuff aside and the bad feelings about how it ended, whatever.
Yeah.
All, the music behind the scenes with the VH1,
Right.
but all that crap that was like, put together and homogenized and all the best stuff left on the shopping floor,
Well, it's
because
the media, right? At the end of the day,
they want to
right?
go after the drama.
Right. Right.
I felt like a great new connection again with somebody that I loved and that I was proud of working with all those years. And so that's what the evening was about. For me, it was more so than actually getting into the Hall of Fame was the reconnection with everyone.
Definitely. And it's interesting. You've always said you've left the door open for him for, to work on future projects either way. But let's talk about the new record and the tour.
Yeah.
Because obviously that's something that's coming up. So July 7th, July 8th, the record drops. You got a bunch of dates coming up. You got Vegas. I think you end in New York, right?
Yeah.
So talking about the new record a little bit, I think it came out, as you mentioned, Randy played on it, and the record came about really during lockdown. So you really couldn't all be in the same room. And Arnell's all the way in Manila, right? So it's not easy to get together when during the middle of a pandemic.
It just started out of really being locked down and kind of going buggy. Nobody was really sold on the idea of coming with a new record and a new album because we're going, well, what's the purpose of it, man? You know, is anyone ever going to hear it? They're expensive to make. We don't want to make a cheap record, that doesn't sound good. And what's the purpose of it? And so I think out of just, if I could say anything good came out of the lockdown, this came out of the lockdown. And me learning how to play a little bit of keyboards came out of lockdown, learn how to play left-hand bass, on the keys.
Awesome.
So I started uh, recording loops from keyboards, like a cool, chord keyboard that had some great drum loops in it, and recording a lot of my ideas so I could work off them, which a lot of them turned into Journey songs, and I'd never really written, that much from keyboards at all. And so it just started there where I started compiling with my new cassette player, this guy right here. I've got thousands and thousands of ideas in my iPhone of musical ideas that I compile every day, and they're all in different genres and all in different veins. And when I go to play every day, while we're home, I always manage to play a couple hours a day and just experiment. some of the days it comes out to be really wild stuff like Miles Davis and very, progressive and avant-garde. And some days it's funky, some days it's hard rock, some, it's just I kind of play whatever the mood was. And so when I suggested to the guys, I said, I want to work. This is after our lawsuit. And we're going to, get a new rhythm section here. And I suggested Narda Michael Walton and Randy Jackson because I had just worked with Narda on my solo record, Universe, and had a great experience with him as a writer, producer, and a drummer. And so I started working with him, because we live very close to one another, and he's got his studio here. And he was the one person that I could get together during this lockdown. We could be in a room together, playing together. And, I've made quite a few records like that, going back to my first solo records I did with Jan Hammer. And Jan playing drums, and he's a badass drummer.
Yeah.
And not knowing that, getting together with him upstate New York when I first wanted to play with him, we started writing together, and I was playing guitar and he's playing drums. So we'd like arrange the stuff, lay it down like that, then later put the bass on, and started building. Well, I just took that same format and started laying down all the ideas with Narda. Then I started putting the bass on. Sometimes I'd put some keys on. Then I go out and start singing on stuff, singing melodies that I was hearing, laying down harmony parts that I was hearing with Narda. We sort of compiled everything like that. And then I would shoot it off to Jonathan, and Jonathan would finish up the lyrics, sometimes, come with, newer vocal ideas. And we started working like that. I'd shoot off, my ideas to Randy. Randy would replace my bass parts and kick my ass. But it was a fun way to make a record. I mean, because we weren't working just within the confines of a computer. It was us, actually in a room. That's why I really believe this album is one of the best records we've ever made, man.
Yeah.
Some people will say, well, sonically, I don't think it's like clean enough. It ain't this, it ain't that. No, you know what? I think it sounds perfect for what it is, because it's like what we sound like live with a bit of polish on it. The Bee Gees are doubled and quadrupled sometimes to sound like, records do, but there's some rough edges in it. There's not too many guitars. And it sounds like we sound like in arena or in a stadium.
Sounds great. I love Let It Rain, by the way. It's such a heavy tune, such a great song.
Yeah, like that's a great song to bring up of where it came from.
Yeah.
Narda was so cool to work with, in a sense, for me, to where, so many people like songwriters that think melody, think nothing about anything but melody and lyrics. And they work within the confines of a computer. And they go, no, that part doesn't fit, man. That's not, you're going to lose people on the radio. You're already chopping off your legs, your arms, everything, as a way I feel, because, that's not how real music is written, to me. And that's not where the actual heart and soul of the music lives. It lives with guitar and drums, man. And that's where I come from as a guitar player, and being a frustrated drummer myself. I hear drums in my head as vividly as I hear guitar. And if I can't get something out of Dean, I can emulate it and get somebody to play it. And so, the thing with working with Narda is that, as a producer and co-producing it with him, he never went, well, let's go back to what we did yesterday. We just kind of moved on every day. They said, well, what do you feel like doing today? And he goes, well, what do you feel like doing? And I said, well, I have this riff, that I was messing around with a whammy pedal that I never play through at home. Now, kind of reminds me of Chaka Khan, and Rufus. And I go little Hendrix and Prince and Sly and Larry, and I've got this thing in my head that I think would be really heavy and funky and could be like a new, a whole new chapter for Journey,
Mm.
something that we've never done before. And he says, well, let's go play it. So we started jamming. That's one take, what's on the album. And my solo is a live solo. We didn't talk about the arrangement. I kind of laid it down as it was going down as I heard it. And, you know, there's no perfect arrangement to it. We just made the vocals fit. Then an artist started singing on it, and he goes, well, I like this. And we worked on it little by little, and we kind of just put it away. And then, came time to demo it up a little more before we sent it to anyone. And we worked on the vocals a little more before we sent it out to John and for him to finish the lyrics on it. And I played the bass, and I did my best Jack Bruce impersonation of what I thought Randy would sound like playing it, and sent it to Randy. And then, Randy, like I said, just came in, he grabbed all of my stuff and just kicked ass on it. And, a song was just born like out of nowhere. And it wasn't about talking about it or thinking about it. It was just about living it in the moment and actually just playing, two guys playing in the studio, like old school style. And so that's where that song came from. And, Arnell like loves this new direction, you know, that and holding on and come away with me and all day and all night. Those four songs right there, had we just come with one of those songs on this new album, there's more familiar sounding stuff on all the 15 tracks on the album. But had we only come with one of those, I felt like we would have lost everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
What is that? But the fact that we came with four new ones that are in that kind of the same kind of realm and the vein, it shows that there's a whole new chapter to
No
Journey that's
question.
funkier and soulful. Yeah.
Definitely excited to hear the record. I mean, as I said, it drops around the time of this podcast, and the tour kicks off July 15th, Resort Worlds in Vegas. You excited for the tour?
Absolutely. Resort World is a new place that we're excited to play. I hear it's like just, phenomenal sounding and state of the art as far as a facility, which, so far I found at AEG, there's nothing AEG does half-ass.
Yeah.
We're never going to play another shed, another little shithole. I mean, all their facilities are just top-notch sound-wise, and they're just what an upgrade. And I'm thrilled to be working with them. And we're doing it with orchestra again. The thing that's cool is we've done one other orchestral. Well, actually, we've done two orchestra shows in our lifetime. One was at the Hollywood Bowl that never got released because the then management never worked out the deal with the Hollywood Bowl that was acceptable. But we did play about a 3-hour show or 2.5-hour show that encompassed a lot more of our material from the earlier days, like from Infinity. So there's a lot of songs off Infinity on there, like Open the Door, Winds of March, a lot of cool stuff that's very musical that lended itself really greatly to an orchestra. Even stuff like City of Hope that was off, our album with Arnell.
Yeah.
And orchestra. The rock stuff to me that never got heard was better than the obvious ballads that you go, well, it already sounds kind of orchestrated stuff with the French horns and the bass trombones and, cellos and a more beefier side of the orchestration shines in these songs. And so we're going to get to play all that stuff. We're also going to be playing 3 or 4 new tracks from the new album. Because it's in conjunction. Also, we've got like contest winners that are going to be flown in from BMG and Frontiers, 2 labels that are doing this album for us. And it should be a great time, man.
Do you have a favorite Journey song to play after all these years?
You know what? I always go to Lights. And, I'm a rocker. I like rocking. I know you're a rocker.
Yeah.
As a drummer. But I love the connection with the audience. And that song has become such a staple with the band, and an epic song with the whole audience like lighting up and
And
just
singing it too.
singing it. The whole audience. Like, there's a clip on YouTube right now of a gig we did earlier this year at the Houston Rodeo, and we sold it out on the night that we played in Seconds Flat. And I've never played this gig before, and I'm like thinking we're playing a rodeo. I go, what the fuck is that going to be about? And so we show up and we play it, and it was 72,000 people.
Incredible.
Like, showed me again our strength of how big we are getting outside of the sheds, you know, and we, newly taking over our merch and actually just getting our trademarks in place. I found out after all these years that we've been lied to for years, that nobody ever trademarked our merchandise
That's insane.
until just recently. And I see our merch every fucking where, all
Everywhere.
over the world.
Yeah.
I mean, billions of dollars we're talking about.
Yeah.
We've been ripped off from. And so I, gotten away from where we were, management wise, promoting wise, and even merch wise. And now things are just getting pulled back together. I've ripped everything off retail shelves because it was all bootleg stuff and illegal selling. And so we had new company come in, Future Shirts, and they came with a shitload of merchandise, and they sold out at the Houston Rodeo. And it was the first big gig they played. They go, fuck, we never thought we would sell out. And so now, we're doing numbers that I think that we would have never imagined that we were doing. Not only selling out the arenas, but selling out of our merch every night. And so it's a testament in time how big this band really is, and that we have really 5 generations of fans out there.
Definitely.
I see kids that are like 5 years old to men my age and women.
Yeah, I was going to say the band seems to be bigger than ever. So congrats on that. Definitely, if you play an LA show or a New York show, hope to meet you and hang in person, maybe with Randy. No LA shows on tap right at the moment.
I'm not sure about the LA show. Which show are you speaking of?
Well, if there's any shows in LA or New York, I hope to hang with you in person.
Oh, come out, man.
For sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
Randy's talking about, if you want to come to Vegas too, Randy's talking about coming the second week of our shows in Vegas.
Amazing. Well, I'll chat with Randy, my neighbor, my good friend. Hope to hang with you soon. The new record, pick up the new record, check out the tour starting July 15th. Neal, it's a pleasure.
Same here, Scott.
I appreciate you coming on.
You, man.
You too. I hope to see you soon.
Thank you, man.